everyone. Welcome to our very small but powerful flag-raising event. So glad that you could all be here. I'm Mary Coachella, and I'm chair of the Mayor's Domestic Violence Task Force, and I want to welcome you on behalf of the task force and also on behalf of the Franklin County Children's Advocacy Center. We're really pleased to be able to hold the event this year. Last year when we had to cancel, I never would have dreamed that we'd still be at a smaller capacity this year, but we're getting there, so fingers crossed. Excuse me, we are here to recognize April as Child Abuse Awareness Month, and as we all know, child abuse happens at a very alarming rate everywhere and also right here in our own community. So as we read the proclamation today and raise the flag, we do so in celebration of our children and in honor of really the resilience and the strength of the families in our own community in the face of this abuse. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our mayor to read us the proclamation.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here, and I just want to say a few opening words. The COVID-19 pandemic brought many bad things with it, and it also brought increased domestic abuse and in that child abuse. So it's very important to raise that awareness this year. We didn't get to do it last year, but we are doing it now, and it's good to think about that very fact. So, and I want to thank the CAC and all of the people who do work with these children and their families. Their work goes on regardless of whether you're in a pandemic or whether you're in what we used to call normal times. So, want to recognize all of you who do that work. Thank you. So, it's my honor to do this. Whereas the health and safety of all citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are important to the happiness, prosperity, and well-being of our families and communities. And whereas every child deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment, and whereas child abuse and neglect impact our entire society and our society's future. And whereas the majority of child abuse cases stem from situations and conditions that are preventable and in an engaged and supportive community. And whereas all citizens should become aware of child abuse prevention and involved in supporting families in raising their children in a safe and secure environment. And whereas in the City of Greenfield, we are grateful for both the Children's Advocacy Center of Franklin County and North Quabbin area and the Northwest District Attorney's Office, who work throughout the year to bring awareness of the prevalence of child abuse to citizens both locally and regionally. Now, therefore, I, Roxanne Wiedegartner, Mayor of the City of Greenfield, do proclaim April as Child Abuse Awareness Month in Greenfield. And I call this observation to the attention of all citizens to help significantly reduce child abuse in future years. Thank you. And now, do we get to raise the flag?
So thank you, Mayor, for all you've done this past year, and thank you, Chief Haig, for raising the flag. The flag will fly throughout the month of April. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is I'm sure you're all really missing the children today. I know I am. But I wanted you to know that thanks to their awesome teacher, Gina Clark, and thanks to GCTV, they are going to be doing some singing for us as a recording, and it's going to get pieced together with this program today, and will be a virtual event that will be shown on GCTV. So it's not the same, but we do still get to hear them sing. So next, I'd like to invite our district attorney forward.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Mayor, for the beautiful proclamation. It's a day to celebrate children and to know that they are the most vulnerable parts of our community, but they need the nurturing and help of everybody. But this has been the toughest year imaginable for children, particularly those that are in abusive environments. And when this pandemic hit a year ago, our reports went down 80 to 90%. Every month we were waiting for more and more reports, but they weren't coming. And so it just highlights how important all our mandatory reporters are, our teachers, our nurses, our police officers, all these people that are the eyes and ears for the community that can reach out and help these children. And DCF, as much as they wanted to be out there with families and children, they couldn't go out during this pandemic. And so we missed those reports. They're coming back, thank God, because these kids can get help. Because the first thing is, let's get them into a safe environment. Let's remove them from a home or place them in another environment. And let's make sure that we work toward healing these kids. And all I can say is, we have the most resilient kids that you can imagine, that can survive this abuse, but then thrive as adults. And that can only happen with the right resources. And I know the Child Advocacy Center has folks that work with this trauma. Irene Woods is here. She has a wonderful team, and they do incredible work to not only recognize that these kids have been through trauma, but to get them through it and to help them move on to be great adults and just thriving human beings. So thank you, Irene, for all the work that you do. And as we raise the flag, we look at this flag, and it has 6 figures on it. And one is an empty figure. And that empty figure, that silhouette, represents 1 out of every 6 children that's abused. 1 out of every 6 experiences either physical or sexual abuse. It's an incredible thought that that could happen in our society. And let's just make a pledge that our kids will be our number 1 priority for ourselves, but also for our society. So I want to thank again, and I want to reach out and recognize Cosmo from Bikers Against Child Abuse. It's a wonderful organization that supports these children when they go to court. How scary it must be for a young child to step into a courtroom, but they've been there for our trials, and they've been such great supports, and just thank you to everybody in your organization. Really appreciate it. So everybody have a wonderful day, and let's keep our kids number 1.
Thank you, DA, and thank you for your ongoing commitment to this issue. It's so greatly appreciated. So next I'm going to introduce Irene Woods that the DA just spoke of so highly, and we're so excited to have you here and to have the Children's Advocacy Center right here in Franklin County. So.
Thanks, Mary. Wow, what a day, what a year. This is one of the events we all look forward to because we have the kids come, they sing, we have community members that come. It's just really an uplifting day. So this past year has been, none of us can describe it, but it's been frightening for anybody in child services. We usually see over 100 kids a year. This last year we saw 48 kids. So that was mainly due to the fact that people weren't making reports, as Dave spoke about. And the kids weren't being seen. They weren't being seen in the community. They weren't being seen at school or at daycare. So I look forward to this year, and I think we're all feeling a bit of relief that the year has changed and we have some great ideas going forward. This past year, the Children's Advocacy Center really focused on supporting kids and families. So we did diaper drives, we provided coats and boots and hats and mittens, which the community really responded. We had lots of beautiful hats and mittens that were donated to us to distribute to kids. And going forward, what we've decided to do is we really want to support kids and families coming out of the pandemic. How do we get kids back out into the community? How do we address their mental health? The kids have been isolated at home. The parents are stressed. So we're going forward with a new project to send kids to camp this summer. So we're collaborating with the Greenfield YMCA, the Athol YMCA, and Value in Our Children in Athol. We'll be doing some online parent safety classes, how to keep your kids safe during the summer, how to choose an appropriate caretaker. So we're collaborating with them, and we're purchasing some camperships so the kids will be able to go to camp. So we're really excited about that, and we're excited about the coming year. So, in the words of my board member, Liz Fisk, our kids are really here to have fun, to learn, to play, and the adults are really here to protect them and keep them safe. So that's our charge coming out of today, that we need to look at mandated reporting. If you see kids in your community, in your neighborhood that you think aren't safe, that you worry just a little bit, just a little suspicion that they're not okay, you need to call. You need to just pick up that phone and report that incident. So that's our charge going forward. But I thank the children's unit from the DA's office, Linda Pisano and Kelly are here. We couldn't do it without them. We couldn't do it without the police, Robbie Haig and his group. I mean, we just couldn't do our interviews and prosecute people. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward to next year and having those kids back, which is always the highlight. So thank you.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Samantha Stalins, and I'm the case manager for the Children's Advocacy Center for Franklin County and North Quabbin. And I'm here today. I'm going to be doing an interview with another one of our community partners and also the mental health consultant to the CAC, and I'll let her introduce herself further. Jackie?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is you're watching this. My name is Jackie Humphreys, and I am a therapist in private practice in South Deerfield, and I am the mental health consultant to the Children's Advocacy Center of Franklin County and the North Quabbin, and also the mental health consultant for a child abuse prevention program called Time to Tell.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. So as you know, April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and I have strategically placed a blue pinwheel behind me, which is the symbol of child abuse awareness. So I wanted to just have a quick conversation with you about prevention and awareness today, and kind of what we can do to support that in our community. So my first question is, why is prevention important?
Well, what we know is that when children feel safe, loved, and valued, able to be creative and feel like their bodies are their own, they thrive. They grow into smart, creative, loving, and empathic teens and adults. However, when their sense of safety is taken away through abuse or neglect, when the messages they get make them feel that they don't matter, not only are children robbed of the basic foundations for a healthy life, but actually the whole community suffers. So prevention is how we can take care of children now, so that we are taking care of their future and also the future of our community.
Very well said, Jackie. Thank you. So my next question is, do you have any advice or recommendations for communities to increase child safety?
I have a few thoughts.
I thought you might.
Well, I think we can all take responsibility for creating a safe community for children by supporting parents. Reach out to offer time, encouragement, validation for parents' strengths. Don't judge, but have compassion for how difficult parenting is, especially now. And I know you and I have both said just how heroic parents are right now.
Absolutely.
And specifically with regards to child sexual abuse, our children are counting on the adults in their lives to keep them safe and to intervene on their behalf. So if you have a funny feeling about someone, if you think there is an adult or older child acting inappropriately, please trust your gut and step in. Say something, anything to that older child or adult you are concerned about. It is better to be wrong than to be right and not have said anything. And you can contact the Children's Advocacy Center for resources that can guide you through those difficult conversations.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your point about not being judgmental, Jackie, because like you said, and you and I have talked about how much has changed over the last year and how difficult and challenging these times are. So it's really important that we support everyone because we are all struggling. So I really appreciate that point, that point about not being judgmental and really supporting people because we're in a tough time.
Yeah, we certainly are. Parenting is always difficult, always. Even in the best of times.
Yeah. And here we are in the midst of a pandemic. It's all new challenges that are just so different and new to all of us. So, so my next question is, do you have any advice or recommendations to approach a child or speak to a child about safety?
Well, I think one of the aspects of developing safety is being able to know when you don't feel safe. So first, I really encourage parents and adults to help children learn about their emotions so they can tell you about them. They can tell you when they're scared, when they're sad, when they're happy, when they're proud, and also teach kids about the sanctity of their bodies. Mm-hmm. So teaching through modeling, through respectful boundaries, teaching the proper names for body parts, and also through giving children choices, like not having to kiss the aunt or uncle that they don't want to kiss, not having to give somebody a hug, and listening really well when something goes wrong and they come to tell you. And let them know that they can always talk with you, that they won't be in trouble. You want to hear. You want to know what they're experiencing. Talk with them about the importance of telling you if someone touches them, and to really to talk about, even if it's someone that they know and love. So if they receive any kind of touch that makes them feel uncomfortable, sad, scared, or confused, so that includes hitting or touching of their private parts. Let them know it is never, ever their fault, and they are not in trouble. And I think really keeping good open communication throughout your child's life is essential, because if something happens, you don't want to be wondering, well, why didn't they tell me? Mm-hmm. You want them to come to you.
Absolutely. Yep. I think it's, just creating that space, right, for conversation. And I think it can be an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. So I think parents just have to be comfortable with it first before they talk to their child also. And I really appreciate your point about using, correct names for body parts. That's so important. So yeah, great answers, Jackie. Thank you so much. I think you captured really the essence of prevention in communities and families, and why children in childhood are just so beautiful and deserve to be protected from harm. So again, I really appreciate your time. And we will see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, good morning. My name is Samantha Stalins, and I am the case manager for the Children's Advocacy Center of Franklin County and North Quabbin. And I'm here this morning with one of our community partners, and she's going to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I'm the coordinator of Franklin County Children's Visitation Program in Greenfield. And I use she, her pronouns. And as the coordinator, I coordinate times between the non-custodial party and the custodial party and the child on when an appropriate time is to meet. And I set up visits with those children and non-custodial parties.
Oh, great.
Yep, so that's my role. And I do work at NELQUIT, which is the New England Learning Center for Women in Transition. And we're a domestic and sexual violence agency. We help domestic violence survivors get resources in the community and beyond. Housing resources. We have the visitation center that's connected to it. Legal advice. Counseling, referrals, and all of that.
That's great. You know, really, really good work. It's so great that you exist in our community and people have this resource to go to.
Yeah.
So we'll start with some questions. The
Sure.
first one I have for you, Kaylee, is can you say a little about the intersection between domestic violence, interpersonal violence, and child abuse?
Sure. So I get a lot of referrals from court and DCF. And almost all of the clients that we accept into the program have a background history of domestic violence.
Okay.
Many of the time, the non-custodial party is the one abusing the custodial party, not in every case, but in the majority of our cases. And it's reported in some of the cases the children witness this domestic violence, or sometimes the children are sexually abused by the non-custodial party. So I think that's an intersection right there. And in some of the cases, the non-custodial party does abuse the child physically as well. So there is a lot of violence that happens at different levels, sexual, physical, and just and domestic violence. Children that do witness domestic violence, it is considered a form of child abuse if the custodial party does not remove the child in that situation.
Okay.
And I'm not blaming anyone for not removing their child, because that is in the cycle of violence to want to continue to stay in that relationship. So it's
Right.
very hard, to remove yourself from that. However, that it is considered neglect to keep the child there. So again, there's so many different levels, and it does vary on a case-by-case basis. And what we do at NELQUIT too is we provide a hotline service where victims of domestic violence can call, and a trained advocate can talk with the victim about how potentially to safely leave, or to give them some information on the cycle of violence. And so what I do is I provide that hotline number to some of our custodial parent clients as well, to kind of help them in, either recovering or recovering from the cycle of violence. But there are a lot of different points along that line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's multiple intersections that we could talk about all day, probably.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate your point about custodial parents or the non-offending parent, like we say in the CAC world. It's it's easy to say, why don't you leave? Why don't you get out of there? But it's like you were just saying, that the cycle of abuse, it's not that easy, right?
Exactly.
There's fear involved, there's coercion involved, there's threats involved. So sometimes I've noticed in our child abuse work that the cycle of domestic violence can look very similar to grooming behaviors, or keeping kids in fear of, so that they have access to people who are offending them. It's interesting, and it's kind of a sad, way, but I think it's so great that we both exist in this community, and we can kind of, partner together and support each other in this work, because this is so very much connected.
Yes, indeed.
So it's a perfect segue into my next question for you, Kaylee, which is why is prevention important?
It's prevention, I think, is important because, we try our best to prevent. I mean, the purpose of our center is to create a safe place for the child and the custodial parties, and also for the child to have a safe place to play with the non-custodial party. So our goal in our center is, I don't know about prevention because sometimes things do happen,
Right.
but my job is to safely redirect the non-custodial party if they talk about something that isn't supposed to be talked about during the center, or how to safely get the child away from the non-custodial party by taking a walk or ending the visit.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say, sometimes things do happen. So I'm careful to say that it can be 100% 100% preventable for things to happen in our center, but that's just our center. Prevention, I think, though, trying my best to create that safe place is very imperative. I mean, that's the whole point of our center. In terms of child abuse and, just in general, domestic violence, I mean, I'm glad that we have places like you and I where we can try to prevent these things, is to, promote our center, wherever we can in Franklin County and beyond. We do get referrals outside of Franklin County. And let people know that there is support out there, that they can reach out, that they can feel comfortable to do so. And so with those supports, perhaps that will prevent some future domestic violence or child abuse situations. So easily accessible resources and just putting our name out there and letting people know that we are here and they shouldn't feel afraid to do so.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. I think that's a great answer. And so for me, sometimes prevention, education, and awareness, I kind of all lump together.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you kind of do education when you can. You have like teachable moments with a non-offending or offending caregiver, and you can role model safety. You can redirect behaviors, and that's a chance for parents to change their behavior and make a better choice. So I think education also is super important to awareness and prevention too. So thank you for that answer. And then my last question for you, Kaylee, is do you have any advice or recommendations for communities to increase child and family safety?
I do. I mean, I think, again, putting our name out there is very important. I know during COVID, it's a little bit harder to do that. So I think we did have a little bit of a lapse and a decrease in our referrals from that. But again, just partnering with communities in Franklin County and beyond, putting our name out there on social media, through brochures. And again, I'm having a little brain lapse because we've been doing virtual visits for so long and just virtual life. I think the networking has kind of lapsed a little bit. But I can't wait for us to go back in person. And in general, I think, we're so interconnected with the courts and, safety planning and other different things. Our organization is so extensive. I think putting our name out there to courts, not just other domestic violence agencies, not just other supervised visitation centers, but realizing that a victim of domestic violence or a child who's a victim goes through different access points within the system, and how I can, as a provider, feel like it's okay to reach out to the courts and say, or, or a therapist or something, if it's okay, and say, how can we best support this child? Because I'm not just supporting this child in this environment. They're touching upon different access points in the system. So how can we come together and provide a nurturing environment for the child or for the victim?
Yeah. You know, I think that's really important. And I think both with your agency and my agency, we are a support service. And so a very strong message to the community, I think, from both of us is that you can contact us for help. That's why we're here, and that there won't be any judgment or shame or, you know, any sort of negative feelings or stigma that they might have felt, like you're saying, at those different access points when they enter the system. So, you know, we are a safe place. And I don't know if you could, Kaylee, really quickly just say, because we are, you know, in the midst of this pandemic, what would be the best way for somebody to contact NILQUIT right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I do have a personal work phone, but I think to just have 24/7 support would be to contact our NILQUIT's crisis line.
Great.
We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we do have trained advocates to help people with emotional support. We do have counseling, and their number is 413-772-0806. And again, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays. That would be the best bet. And then you can also reach me through there as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kaylee. We really appreciate your time today. And thank you for your work and for your agency's work. It's so important. And I think we're kind of blessed. I think Franklin County is a unique place, and we do try to collaborate quite often when we can. So yeah, we just really appreciate you and your work. So thank you.
Thank you. And you as well.
Thanks, Kaylee.